Some Christians are praying, fasting, giving, and still, nothing moves. Not because heaven turned away, not because their faith failed, but because 3 ancient witchcraft covenants, older than their family name, older than their village, older than their bloodline, are quietly draining their financial destiny. Covenants that were formed long before they were born. Covenants made in secret gatherings. Covenants sealed with tokens, vows, and the names of unborn children. Most people never question the pattern. They assume life is hard. They assume maybe it's just a season. They assume everyone struggles. But behind those patterns, behind the rising and falling, behind every breakthrough that collapses the moment it appears, something darker was lurking, or so it seemed. Because money wasn't the real target. The house, the job, the business, those were only surface wounds. The true attack was deeper. To drain strength, to weaken faith, to exhaust hope, to silence destiny. And here's the part most Christians never hear. Every time they prayed, something pushed back. Every time they fasted, something resisted. Every time they sowed a seed, something swallowed it. Not because the prayer lacked power, but because a spiritual transaction already existed, one they never signed, yet one they were still paying for. And tonight, the truth you are about to hear will disturb the silence around your life. Because an ex-warlock once confessed something most believers never imagine. If we want to control a family's destiny, we don't attack their bodies first. We attack their dreams, their money, and their peace. When those 3 fall, the rest follows. He revealed the exact signs, the exact gateways, the exact hidden agreements. And he said something even more unsettling. Those who break these covenants feel the resistance before the breakthrough. Those who don't, repeat the same cycle until their last breath. Some of you listening right now already know you are in a pattern, breakthrough that rises, collapses, and your spirit has sensed it. This is not just life. This is warfare. Tonight, you're about to hear the confession, the revelation, and the steps to break what was formed long before you arrived. But before we open the first covenant, you must understand one thing. Everything you thought was normal was never normal. I'm not talking about poverty. I'm talking about spiritual contracts written without your permission. Some of them were activated before you were even born, before your first cry, before your first breath, while you were still a thought in eternity. And here is the confession most people never hear. An ex-warlock once said, "We didn't need your signature to bind you. All we needed was the permission of someone carrying your blood. One vow, one ritual, one desperate decision, and an entire generation became tied to an altar they never saw." He explained that these contracts were not written on paper, they were spoken, chanted, sealed with tokens and offerings. Words that traveled through time, words that waited, words that attached themselves to the unborn. According to him, the moment a child enters a bloodline under such a covenant, 3 things begin to follow them. A shadow that drains progress. A resistance that blocks opportunities. A pattern that repeats without mercy. But his confession didn't end there. He said, "We did not always aim at money. We aimed at destiny. Money was only the rope. Destiny was the prisoner." He described how entire families, uncles, cousins, siblings, begin to experience the same cycle. Jobs start well, then collapse. Businesses rise, then fall apart suddenly. Helpers appear, then disappear without reason. Breakthrough knocks, then vanishes like smoke. And every time someone tries to rise above the pattern, something unseen pulls them back with invisible hands. Then he revealed something even heavier. When you sleep, he said, your spirit becomes the battlefield. That is where we reinforce the contract. That is where we plant instructions. That is where we steal tomorrow before the sun rises. He explained how dreams become the courtroom, the meeting place, the negotiation table, where covenants are renewed, where destinies are exchanged, where spiritual theft happens quietly. According to him, every time someone dreams of returning to their old house, picking money that disappears, eating with unknown people, being chased or restrained, losing something important, they are not just dreaming, they are experiencing a transaction, a renewal, a reminder, a reinforcement of what was written long ago. And he said something that froze the room. If a person does not fight these contracts with understanding, they will work twice as hard to achieve half as much. But then he said the line that changed everything. The moment someone begins to sense the truth, the covenant begins to shake. And if you're watching this now, if something in your spirit is reacting, if your mind is connecting the dots, it is a sign. The shaking has begun. I was once deep inside the occult, not at the edges, not as a curious visitor, but inside the chambers where decisions were made, where families were marked, where destinies were exchanged without permission. I witnessed how covenants were placed on bloodlines, quietly, legally, spiritually. No arguments, no noise, just a single vow whispered over a name, and a chain would form that could last 100 years. I saw how some people rose fast and suddenly collapsed, not because they were careless, but because something invisible waited for the exact moment their joy was highest, and then cut the rope under their feet. I watched individuals sacrifice sleep, energy, peace, all just to understand why their life kept resetting after every small victory. And today, I'll expose the 3 covenants that attack finances the most, the ones we used when we wanted to drain a family slowly without ever touching their bodies. These were the covenants we relied on because they were quiet, slow, effective, and almost impossible to detect unless someone understood the dream world and the laws that control it. No exaggeration, no drama. Just the truth of what I saw and what I participated in before God pulled me out. The first covenant targets your hands. It closes everything you touch. Opportunities slip away, projects collapse halfway, money disappears as quickly as it comes, not by accident, but by an instruction released long before you were born. The second covenant targets your name. It fights your favor. It twists how people see you. It pushes away helpers. It turns open doors into silent rejection. You step into rooms where you should rise, yet something unseen turns the atmosphere against you, and you can't explain why. But the third covenant, I almost didn't want to talk about it. This one is so dangerous, so deeply rooted, that even those who formed it refused to speak it openly. In their gatherings, they whispered it. In their rituals, they hid it. In their records, they buried it beneath symbols so that only select people could read it. An ex-warlock once confessed, "If a person breaks the first covenant, we try again. If they break the second, we follow them into their dreams. But if they ever discover the third, that's when the battle shifts." Because the third covenant is the strongest weapon we have against a person's destiny. He said this with a quietness that carried weight, as if remembering the faces of people who almost escaped, and the battles they faced the moment they learned the truth. According to him, the third covenant doesn't attack your hands, it doesn't attack your name. It attacks something deeper. Your season, your timing, your alignment with what heaven planned. It delays what should be early. It interrupts what should be smooth. It slows what should be fast. It locks you out of moments that were designed to lift you. He looked straight at the interviewer and said, "We don't need to destroy a person's life. We just need to delay it long enough for them to give up on their own. Stay with me till the end, because this third covenant is the one you need to break the most. And when you understand how it works, you will never look at your battles the same way again." I once met a woman who prayed for 15 years and never saw a single step of financial progress. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't careless. She wasn't inconsistent. She did everything a believer is taught to do: fasting, night prayers, prophetic declarations, sacrificial giving. Yet every promotion slipped from her hands. Every door opened, then shut again. Every new beginning collapsed before it matured. She thought heaven was silent, but something else was speaking louder. I remember the day she came to me trembling, not because of fear, but because she finally noticed a pattern in her own life. She said, "Every time I'm about to rise, I see a shadow in my dreams. It never speaks, it only stands and watches me." At first I didn't understand. Shadows in dreams can mean many things. But then she told me something that changed everything. She said, "The moment that shadow appears, everything I built begins to collapse." Then she whispered something I will never forget. "I feel like someone made a decision about my life before I was born." Those words were the beginning of the confession. Because later, much later, an ex-warlock confirmed exactly what she described without ever meeting her. He said, "People think the battle starts when they become adults, but many destinies are already claimed long before birth." And when he said that, her entire story became clear. Her dreams were not random. Her failure was not natural. Her stagnation was not ordinary. She was living inside a covenant she never signed. And that realization led me straight to the first ancient covenant, the one that attacks a person's rising through their dreams, the one that drains their resources before they even touch their hands. It shows itself quietly, through patterns, setbacks, delays. But the moment you notice it, the moment you recognize it for what it is, everything begins to shift. Her story opened my eyes. Because what looked like bad luck was actually a spiritual contract written in her absence. And many watching this right now may discover that the same contract has been repeating itself in their own life. Before you understand the covenant of the closed hand, you must see it through the life of one woman. A woman who prayed with fire, worked with excellence, and yet lived under a silence she could never explain. She woke before dawn every day. She did the work others avoided. She learned the skills. She took the risks. She sowed the seeds. She even fasted when her body was tired. To anyone watching, she was doing everything right. And yet, every month, money entered her hands, and within days it slipped away, as if her palms were open doors with no walls. Then it became stranger. An employer who promised her a promotion suddenly lost the paperwork. A business contract she had waited months for disappeared the night before signing. People who once believed in her woke up the next morning and changed their mind without reason. Helpers arrived with excitement and left with confusion. Breakthroughs approached like visitors and then turned away at the gate. At first she blamed herself. Maybe she needed to work harder, maybe she didn't pray correctly, maybe she lacked wisdom. But the pattern repeated with precision. Every time something good reached her hands, something invisible pulled it away. And what she didn't know was that miles away, in a dimly lit room, an old man who once practiced witchcraft had already described her situation with frightening accuracy. He said, "When we want to stop a person's progress, we don't chase their money. We target their hands. If you close a person's hands in the spirit, everything they touch dries up." Those words shook the pastors who interviewed him, because he wasn't speaking symbolically. He was confessing the mechanic of an actual covenant. He continued, "Hands represent a person's assignments, a person's influence, a person's reward. If we bind their hands, all their labor becomes empty labor." He described how it happens. Some covenants are created through spoken curses, words released by angry relatives, jealous neighbors, offended partners. Words spoken casually, yet received spiritually. Some are forged on evil altars, where a person's photograph, name, or personal items are used to seal limitations. Some come from household wickedness, people who smile in daylight but exchange those same hands in nighttime meetings. And some come from foundational agreements, decisions made by ancestors who offered the success of future generations in return for temporary power. In these covenants, the hand becomes the symbol of control, because the hand represents productivity. The hand represents capacity. The hand represents what you can build, hold, and multiply. So when the hand is spiritually tied, the physical world reflects it. Things work until they reach your hand. Opportunities rise until you come close. People support you until the moment they must follow through. And the ex-warlock said something even heavier. The person will feel tired, even when doing simple tasks. They will feel discouraged at the edge of success. Their ideas will be strong, but their results will be weak. It was a confession that exposed the hidden battle many Christians never knew they were fighting, the covenant of the closed hand. And suddenly, the woman's story made sense. It wasn't incompetence, it wasn't laziness, it wasn't bad luck, it was a transaction taken against her in the spirit, one she never signed, yet one she was still paying for. Because when this covenant is active, the enemy doesn't have to block everything. He only needs to block your hands. Once the hands are tied, the destiny becomes slow, heavy, and unpredictable. But here is where your attention must sharpen. This covenant is only the first layer, because there is a second covenant, far more dangerous and far more stubborn, because unlike this one, it follows you everywhere. If this is opening your eyes, comment. I break it. Most people think financial battles are about demons. They think it's about attacks, arrows, or shadows moving in the night. But they rarely ask the more dangerous question. What gives those forces the right to touch a destiny in the first place? Because demons don't choose their targets freely. They follow instructions, they obey structures. And in the spirit realm, covenants speak louder than commands. This is the shocking part, the ex-warlock confessed. The part he said he was afraid to admit for years. A demon cannot touch a believer unless a covenant gives it the ground. Break the covenant and the demon loses its assignment. This is why some people pray loudly, fast intensely, wake up at midnight, and still feel the same heavy resistance sitting at the door of their finances. Not because they lack authority, but because the covenant they never made is still speaking. And this is what separates the second covenant from the first. The first covenant drains money, but the second covenant destroys favor, even when you work hard, even when you sow, even when you do everything right. It targets open doors, opportunities, helpers, divine connections, and quietly shuts them one by one. The ex-warlock explained it like this. We don't always attack a person's money directly. We attach a covenant to their favor. If favor breaks, every blessing dries up on its own. So someone can be gifted, someone can be disciplined, someone can be ready for greatness. Yet every time a breakthrough gets close, it slips away. Not because they are unworthy, but because something old is claiming ownership of their opportunities. This is why some people are loved, but not helped. Seen, but not chosen. Considered, but not selected. Invited, but never accepted. And the ex-warlock said something even heavier, his voice shaking when he admitted it. When we place this covenant on a family, it doesn't attack their wallets, it attacks the eyes of their helpers. Those who are sent to bless them suddenly feel nothing. Which means the battles you thought were about delay were actually battles about recognition. Favor wasn't missing. Favor was muted. And as long as the covenant stands, the silence continues. But the moment it breaks, the moment the foundation is uprooted that resisted you for years, begin to open without explanation. Because covenants are stronger than demons, and once the covenant collapses, every assignment tied to it collapses with it. Now, we enter the second covenant in full. And its origin, its purpose, and the way it attaches to a destiny is far darker than most believers imagine. There is a covenant more dangerous than the one that steals money, more quiet than the one that drains opportunities, more targeted than anything you've seen in the physical. The covenant against your name. Many people think warfare begins with dreams, health, or finances. But those who understand the deeper world know, if witchcraft captures your name spiritually, they don't need to attack your body. They don't need to touch your house. They don't need to touch your job. They simply attack your identity. Because everything you are, your favor, your credibility, your opportunities, flows from the meaning carried by your name. And the proof of this covenant is seen in the patterns. A person goes for an interview. They do well, the panel smiles, the room feels positive. They step outside confident. But the moment their name is written down, something invisible shifts. By the next day, the opportunity evaporates like smoke. Another person enters a new environment. People warmly receive them, speak well of them, promise support. But a week later, hearts turn cold. Calls stop, interest disappears, favors dry up. And worst of all, promises collapse at the edge of manifestation. No disagreement, no mistake, no explanation. It just breaks. Not because they lacked skill. Not because they lacked grace. But because something was contending with their name. Most Christians don't realize this. Your name carries your spiritual reputation. Your name is a doorway. Your name is a banner in the spirit. Whatever touches it, touches you. And this is where the confession of an ex-warlock becomes the most disturbing part of this story. He said, if we want a person to suffer rejection, we don't attack their face. We attack their name. We write it where the person cannot see. We speak over it what we want their life to become. And as long as the name remains on that altar, their helpers will forget them. He explained how names were used in occult gatherings. Sheets of paper spread across a table. Candles arranged in circles. Small tokens representing families. And written in the middle, names. First name, middle name, surname. Sometimes misspelled on purpose. Sometimes written in full. But once the name was placed in the center, the agreement had already begun. He said something even heavier. What we do to the name does not show up in the physical instantly. It first appears as delay, then rejection, then rising and falling, then promises that never mature. by the time the person realizes something is wrong, years have already passed. He revealed that names were tied to objects, cloth, pictures, strands of hair, anything that carried identity. Because in the realm of the spirit, your name is your legal entry point. And this aligns perfectly with something Scripture said thousands of years ago: a good name is better than riches. Why? Because if the name is under attack, riches cannot stay. Blessing cannot stay. Honor cannot stay. Favor cannot stay. When the name is captured, the life becomes a pattern. People like you until the moment you need them the most. Doors open, but close before you step inside. Help appears, but never completes its assignment. Your face is innocent, but your name carries accusation in the unseen realm. And some of you watching right now know this is true. Because there is no reason your breakthrough should have collapsed the way it did. There is no natural explanation for why people suddenly change toward you. There is no logical reason why every good thing reaches 90%, then dies. This is why the covenant against your name is one of the most dangerous, because it attacks without touching your body. It damages you without leaving visible marks. It blocks you without entering your house. He called it the silent reduction. You feel yourself getting smaller. Your voice loses weight. Your presence carries less influence. Your progress slows one small step at a time. And when he left that occult system, he confessed something that should make every believer watch this next part carefully. The only people who escape this covenant are those who know how to cleanse their name in prayer. They speak over it until every invisible accusation breaks. He said, when a name is redeemed, what was lost finds its way back. Helpers return. Forgotten promises reappear. Favor becomes loud. But he also warned, if you break the first covenant but ignore this one, the battle continues. Because the covenant against your name doesn't just fight your opportunities. It fights your identity, your credibility, your voice, your destiny. And if this part feels heavy, prepare yourself. Because the third covenant, the next one, is the one that destroys entire family lines. The one that rewrites generations. The one that disguises itself so well that even prayer warriors fail to detect it. And when you see how it works, everything in this story will make sense. But before we open that door, if you're still watching, type in the comments, "My name is redeemed." Because the moment you speak it, you challenge the agreement that has followed you for years. This last covenant. This one is different. And before we open it, you need to hear the truth from the one who once served inside the kingdom that created it. Because he said, without hesitation, without pride, almost with fear in his voice, this is the covenant that attacked me personally when I was in the occult. He didn't describe it as another charm, another ritual, another assignment. He said it was a system, a spiritual mechanism designed to lock a person out of their destiny season. It doesn't steal your bank account. It doesn't scatter your business. It doesn't touch your physical possessions. It steals your moments. The very timing heaven designed for you. He explained it in a confession most believers are not prepared for. We monitored people's seasons. If their time of lifting was close, we redirected it. If their helpers were rising, we hid their names. If their moment of favor was approaching, we covered them with delay. And then he said the part that shook even the strongest intercessors who heard him. When this covenant is active, no prayer seems to work. Not because God is silent, but because the person is praying outside their appointed time, like someone knocking on a door that was shifted the moment they reached it. He described watching people who were gifted, chosen, anointed, people who carried real potential, people who were supposed to rise early in life. Yet they kept missing opportunities by hours, losing connections by minutes, and arriving at their destiny gates just when they were closing. And he said, we didn't destroy their destiny, we only delayed it long enough for discouragement to finish the job. This is the covenant that operates quietly. No nightmares, no strange attacks, no visible signs, just mistiming, misaligned steps, doors that should have opened but remained still. A covenant that manipulates the calendar of your destiny, and then waits for you to give up on your own dream. And tonight, you're about to see how it works, how it is activated, and the one sign that exposes it every time. Because once we enter the final covenant, everything you've questioned about your life, every delay, every near breakthrough, every closed door, will finally make sense. There is a man whose life became a calendar of confusion. Every 3 years he rose, every 4th year he fell. Not because he mismanaged money, not because he lacked wisdom, but because something, somewhere, kept rearranging the timing of his destiny. His life felt like climbing a mountain only for the ground to shift beneath his feet. He prayed, he worked hard, he planned ahead. But just when he was closest to his breakthrough, just when the harvest was in sight, just when the contract was about to be signed, a sudden crisis appeared out of nowhere. Not once, not twice, but on a cycle. Like the crisis was waiting, watching, calculating the exact moment to strike. It happened the year he got his promotion. The year he started building his house. The year his business finally stabilized. The year his savings looked healthy for the first time. And every time, the pattern returned exactly the same. Crisis, collapse, silence, rebuilding, then another rise, then another fall. Money entered his hands only in certain months. Doors opened only in certain seasons. Then in the very season when all should work, everything shut down. People told him, life is full of ups and downs. But he knew, deep in his spirit, this was not natural fluctuation. This was intentional, strategic, timed, and he was right. Because in witchcraft circles, they have a name for this: season exchange. A tactic where they manipulate the timing of your rising, where they shift your harvest into a season of warfare so you cannot enjoy it, where they push your crisis into the season you should be celebrating so you collapse instead of rising. Blessings arrive when you are spiritually exhausted. Opportunities show up when you lack strength to pursue them. Doors open in the exact moment you are fighting emotional battles. Help comes when your hands are too weak to receive it. And the man never understood why his best opportunities always appeared during the darkest moments of his life. Until he met someone, an ex-warlock who once worked in household altars. And the confession he heard that night was the beginning of his deliverance. The former warlock said, "Time is the easiest thing to steal. People think witches attack money. We prefer to attack timing. If we control timing, we control destiny." He described how they operate during new moon rituals, reenacting ancient transactions, how they walk around household altars mentioning names like a roll call, assigning each family member a different season, some for rising, others for falling. He confessed how dream exchanges work. If we take your strength in a dream, your rising will be delayed. If we give you fear in a dream, your harvest will shift. If we trade your season in the dream market, you will wake up at the wrong time, move at the wrong time, and invest at the wrong time. And then he revealed the most disturbing part. We don't stop blessings from coming. We only make sure they come when the person is unprepared. And by the time they finally recover, the season is gone. That single statement explained years of the man's confusion. Why breakthroughs came when he was overwhelmed. Why opportunities appeared when he was emotionally drained. Why the right people showed up at the wrong time. Why every rising season ended with an unexpected problem. This covenant, the covenant of exchange destiny seasons, is subtle but destructive. It causes right opportunities to appear at the wrong time. Wrong opportunities to appear at the right time. Promotions to come when you cannot handle them. Breakdowns to come when you should be rising. Help to arrive when you are too discouraged to use it. Open doors to appear when your hands are full of battles. Because as the ex-warlock said, once someone's season is hijacked, their entire future scatters. They walk into battles that were never theirs, and miss blessings that were meant for them. He spoke about spiritual trading, places in the spirit realm that function like markets, where destinies can be borrowed, delayed, or exchanged. Where someone's rising can be transferred, where someone's celebration can be postponed for years, where someone's harvest can be reassigned to another family altar. And he ended with a warning. If a person does not understand how to reclaim their season, they will keep repeating the same story until their strength is gone. This is why some people are always one step away from their breakthrough, yet never cross into it. This is why some rise and fall and rise and fall, as if their life is controlled by a clock they cannot see. Because times and seasons are spiritual gates. Once those gates are manipulated, a person's financial destiny becomes scattered. If this part is speaking to you, type it boldly. My season is restored. Now that you understand the covenants, you cannot leave them unbroken. Because once a covenant is exposed, it does not remain quiet. It reacts. It pushes back. It tightens its grip for one last attempt to stay alive. This is why some people feel sudden heaviness, why their dreams become louder, why their mind becomes unsettled the moment truth reaches them. It is the sign that what was hidden in darkness has been dragged to the edge of judgment. And here's the part most Christians never hear. When the ex-warlock finally left the circle he once served, he revealed something that shook even seasoned deliverance ministers. He said, "When a person learns the truth about their covenant, we feel it on our side. It is as if a prison has been cracked open, so we rush to reinforce the chains." He described how on certain nights names are called in the spirit realm. Not for blessings, but to determine who among the living is beginning to wake up. He said, "Once their name rises with light, we know they are discovering the gate, and we know the gate will fall if they pray the right prayer." That confession changed everything. Because it means the resistance you feel is not proof that prayer is failing, it is proof that prayer is working. But here is the most unsettling part. He admitted that there are 3 specific prayer strikes that can tear down a covenant completely. Not 10, not 20, 3. And every former occult member who has spoken out confirms the same thing. The third prayer is the one witches fear the most. Why? Because the third prayer does not just break the covenant, it destroys the altar that supports it. And once an altar collapses, everything tied to it collapses with it. The tokens, the vows, the ancestral agreements, the spiritual transactions, all of it. So understand this. You have reached the point in this journey where knowledge alone is not enough. You cannot stop here. You cannot remain exposed without covering. You cannot uncover a gate and walk away without closing it. In the next video, I will show you the exact prayer steps to shatter these covenants permanently, step by step, gate by gate, strike by strike. And when we reach the third prayer, you will understand why the kingdom of darkness tries so hard to keep believers away from it. Prepare yourself, because you are closer to freedom than you have ever been. Some of you have felt it all along, the weight that never lifts, the frustration that always returns, the breakthroughs that vanish the moment they appear. You are not powerless. You are not cursed forever. Whatever covenant was written against your finances, it ends now. Whatever agreement your ancestors never broke, whatever secret vow, token, or binding is shattered in the presence of the blood of Jesus. Your hands will work again. Your name will rise again. Your season will be restored. And listen carefully. No witchcraft covenant, no hidden spiritual contract will stand where the authority of Christ is declared. The chains that once bound your money, your home, your business are breaking tonight. The same power that raised the dead is raising your financial destiny. Your financial destiny is not lost. It is waking up. And tonight, you are not alone. If you want the breaking prayers to close these gates, watch the next video. Comment your country below. I want to pray for you. Because the battle may have been hidden, but the victory is now in your hands.